would everybody join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let the record show that Bob Eldon, Selectman, Tara Carr, Selectwoman, and Steve Dunn, First Selectman, are present. In public comment, I just would like to make one thing. If you want to make comment about the cell tower, we're having a meeting on Thursday, right? You're perfectly welcome to make comment tonight, but we would recommend that you also come to the hearing. And if you're gonna say the same thing twice, maybe just go Thursday, right? But everybody can still make public comment. Who do we have for public comment?
David Myers.
Dan Myers.
Sorry, Dan, sorry.
You said you could read it.
Great. Dan Myers, 16 Powderhorn Hill. I just wanted to comment on the latest on the pipeline stuff going on. We've spoken to about 3 different nonprofits and their legal departments, spoken to 2 different private attorneys. There's clearly an opportunity for the town to be formal interveners and push back on the expansion basically on the basis of their selection of the compressor technologies. Pretty much every single set of legal counsel within those nonprofits or the private attorneys seem to have consensus on that. So my recommendation, I saw in the notes that the plan was to wait for a hearing. My suggestion would be figure out what it would take to be interveners, because we also heard from those same attorneys that CT Deep will listen to municipal interveners, like the formal interveners, and give you more than your 3 minutes at their hearing, where you can put together a lot more information. I know Steve, after I looked into some things, had been an intervener on some project related to the substation down there. So I know you guys are familiar with the process. Essentially, actually, that substation is about 3,000, 4,000 feet away from the compressor station. It's 115 kilovolt transmission line. They got plenty of juice to run electric compressors. And there's a railroad right away that connects the 2 properties. So I think, you know, there's a lot of games if you look in the record regarding what they put in their best available control technology. Iroquois had to amend it numerous times at the request of CT Deep. Super easy way to push back on this project. Should be squarely in line with what CT Deep regulates. And that will probably force a re-permitting process at the FERC side. So then there's a whole, it's kind of an interesting opportunity there. So just want to come and put my 2 cents in that that's a real opportunity. There's some real informed people who sort of corroborated it. Yeah, the last thing I was going to say on the tower, I won't be there Thursday. Kind of neutral on where, but very in favor of, just because I've got parents who, you know, would definitely benefit from, in the unfortunate event that they would need help. It's pretty scary to call them and know that you can't get a hold of them. And I'm sure EMS is in the exact same place. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
Carrie Swift, 25 Pocono Ridge Road. I'm going to follow up on Dan's comments. Deep says they're going to rule probably this fall. And remember, it's 2 new compressor stations. The application they have in now, there's new methane rules. They are not meeting them. Deep has already sent them a letter. They're not meeting the regulation. Iroquois came back with some fairy tale technology that doesn't actually exist. They also are not meeting there's new particulate matter PM 2.5 standards that I know, and thank you Tara and Bob for coming to our health impact study forum. That we have a health impact study that came out for the children, so that we should all be concerned about PM 2.5 because that is the cause of childhood asthma. So it's a big concern. So I think, as Dan said, there's lots to push back on. If they grant this permit, there's lots of reasons to deny it. We need an attorney, and I know you have names of attorneys that specialize in that. There was supposed to be money in the budget. We're not talking a huge, expense or anything, but I don't think that we should ever meet with Iroquois or do anything with Iroquois without that attorney's present. They have never shown our best interests, that they have our best interests in minds or anything else. The fact that they're putting this next to a school, spewing toxic pollution and with all that danger, and they will not even think about putting in electric compressors, just shows they don't care about us. So we need to think about doing that. Hopefully, they will deny the permit, but I will tell you that we were up in Hartford. We met with we just happened to meet the mayor and the deputy mayor of Cromwell, who are up there advocating for their town, and they have an Enbridge, like we have there. That's Algonquin. They have an Enbridge compressors in their town. The mayor wasn't even told that they were under a consent order for 10 years because of emitting over the levels of pollution, and Deep just renewed their permit. They're supposed to, come into compliance. They've been under a consent order for 10 years. So I really think we need this attorney, and we need to start pushing back now. And I'm hoping that we have that meeting with the governor. I would like an update on where that letter went and if you've heard. And Attorney Beecher, I have to say, is a fine town attorney. I was an intervener the last time. I was the intervener the last time the permit was approved. And Attorney Beecher and I went to Deep. It was at that time. He's a fine attorney, but we need one who specializes in this kind of facility. Okay, that's really important. So, and we're hopeful they'll deny it, but like I said, look what just happened in Cromwell. So we have a lot to look at. We have a lot to think about. We need to have someone to represent our town, and we need to have you as our municipal representatives as an intervener, not just Carrie, not just Dan, because individuals can be interveners, but we need to have the town be an intervener.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. That's it. Okay. I would,
I'll make a motion to add an item to the agenda. Next, to have Wendy Youngblood, the chairman of the Board of Education, give us an update.
I will second that motion. Any discussion?
An update on what?
Well, how the Board of Ed is doing.
Budget, on budget.
On budget.
Similar to what I used to do, Tara.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Wendy.
Thanks very much. I promised to make it brief, and I brought for the three of you some paperwork. This is the September 10th summary from our business director, Casey Jett, who just walked in. So if things get dicey, Casey, you're on deck. So I want to give you a quick sec to look over the table and her cover letter.
So this was done on September 10th?
Exactly. The next meeting, I believe, is this Thursday, correct? Yeah, so this is, air quotes, old data. It'll be updated as of this week, but I think that there's some important things. I wanted to just start in helping you guys understand some trend lines, or what may become trend lines that we're seeing. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview, and then we'll have a minute or two for questions. When you look at the table, one of the things that might stand out is the salary savings from leaves and vacancies. That's just north of $99,000. This is the amount of budgeted salary money that we have not paid people because budgeted positions were at that time vacant, and some employees were on unpaid leave. So this is a somewhat projected figure, since it is known when some positions will return from an unpaid leave, but it's also more of an estimate since vacancies could be filled at any time, and in fact they were. So right now this might seem like a huge savings in our budget, but keep in mind that we do not budget for long-term subs at all. We pay for long-term subs with these underruns in salaries due to leaves and vacancies. Another important point, not all leaves are unpaid. There are many instances where we are paying both the employee and the substitute. So you'll also see on the financial report that we are, quote, over budget for long-term subs by $23,580, or we were on September 10th. Technically, we're always going to be over budget because we budget zero for long-term subs. This $23,000 budget exposure is not a projected number exactly. It's closer to a running total, so at this point, it's going to be higher since we don't have a budget to project against. All that to say that this $23,000 exposure to our budget will inevitably grow as the year goes on, since we know we're going to need more long-term subs throughout the year, and our historical amounts have always been more. The big takeaway in terms of understanding the personnel portion of the cover letter is that right now we are seeing a net savings of $75,000, 75,520, considering savings from leaves and vacancies, as well as the exposure from long-term subs. But it's obviously still very early in the year, and we expect this net savings to basically dissolve as we employ long-term subs. We see this every year, and there's really nothing we can do about it except try to keep our employees in the building as much as possible.
And you're trending, where do you think that your final number is gonna end up, or
Oh, I don't
too
know.
early to say?
Yeah, it's too early to say. Casey, last year, we were north of what, 300,000 for leaves and vacancies?
Long-term and short-term, no, long-term subs is usually somewhere around 100,000, I think it was 88 last year. But again, there will be savings from leaves and vacancies, as you pointed out, Wendy, to offset that. You just always hope that your savings from the salaries is more than your long-term subs.
Right.
And most of the time it is. I
Right.
would say in the last 5 years it has been.
So if I'm reading this correctly, the two big problems are special ed transportation and special ed itself, which we don't know what they're gonna be.
Right.
At any given point.
Exactly. So we had, due to a variety of factors, including the excellent work of our director of special education, he worked with families to get 5 families to integrate back into the system. But we had 7 families move in who require special education services and outplacements of those, for those 7. And so, it's a legal obligation. It's important to do right by our kids. But it comes at a cost. One thing that Marcia and I were talking about just quickly before the meeting, you'll see towards the bottom of Casey's table, the really rotten news about the electricity delivery costs. But I understand that there may be good news afoot this evening regarding that, perhaps.
We'll see.
We'll see. So I know that the whole town, the whole state is under the burden of increased Eversource
Yeah.
delivery costs, so we're feeling it too. Do you have questions for me, or maybe more precisely for Casey?
Tara, any
I
questions?
do. Hi, Wendy.
Yes, hi.
The substitute teaching, just in general terms, are you guys having problems finding substitutes?
I don't know that it's more acute than in past years, but I'm not sure. No?
I wouldn't say it's any different this year than it is last year. Our fill rate, we use ESS, which supplies us with our short-term subs, and when they can, our long-term subs as well. Their fill rate is anywhere from 68 to 70%. We don't have an update from them yet. They usually present later in the fall, and actually I think they're gonna present to the board then in December.
Okay.
Their data, but usually it's around 68, 70% is the fill rate. And then in other, where we're not able to obtain a sub from ESS, it's usually in-house moves and shifts to cover classes.
And what about the pay for those substitutes? Are we competitive with surrounding towns?
Yes, I believe so. It's right, I think, I don't know what, 110 for a full day. But it's different. If you're a permanent building sub, this is all part of pay rate guidelines, which are updated typically in January, when we get the new Connecticut minimum wage numbers and all that. It depends on if you're a short-term sub, a long-term sub, a building sub, a half-day sub, a full-day sub. There's many different categories of our rates.
So this estimate of a $23,500 shortage could be more.
Oh, that will be more. Those are the long-term subs, and those are the subs that we know are in our schools to fill a vacancy for FMLA, if a teacher is out for an extended period of time, or if it's an open vacancy, which I don't know that we have any of those currently. I think these are all FMLA leaves at this time.
Are those long-term subs certified teachers?
So that's all governed by state law. Anything I believe over 60 days has to be a certified teacher. If it's under that, there's different requirements. And I'm not the HR expert. I apologize, but I do know that.
But you do
there
always
are
try to get
state law.
certified teachers as subs.
Absolutely.
Subs, the
Right.
60-day rule is always in effect.
Yeah.
And
Bob, any questions, concerns, issues?
My question was on special ed transportation.
Yes,
That's a big number.
yes.
Is that all tied to the 7 new outplacements versus the 5, or is there other things going on?
Well, things may have shifted since the September report, but I remember you saying that due to what was happening in buses, either individual students had to be separated or paraprofessionals had to be added to bus runs. Is that still the case? Do we know?
Yeah, that is part of it, absolutely. Another big part of it this year, which we will talk about on Thursday, is the requirement that we have for children that are displaced from their homes. There's
Oh,
the
yes.
McKinney-Vento Act, which requires that we support them when they are essentially homeless. They've
And
been
provide
displaced from their-
transportation
and
to
we have
school.
provide transportation. So we do have more situations that fall under that category this year than we have historically, at least in the last 2 years that we're looking at. And that is a significant expense that we are incurring this year.
How much of the 255 is that?
It's over $100,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It looked like a big number to me. Usually special ed transportation is a little bit smaller than the tuition line, but
So early in the year.
especially this early in the year, so
Yeah,
that
and-
explains it, so.
Exactly, and those aren't necessarily special ed, special education, they're just.
They're special
elementary.
situations more than
Special
anything,
situations.
yeah, I got it.
Exactly.
Okay, good. Any other questions, concerns?
Okay.
Wendy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. Okay, we move on in our presentation to the Community Garden Cost Sharing, request by Brookfield Lions Club President Amy Deesman. Ms. Deesman, please.
Thank you for having me this evening. Again, my name is Amy Deesman. I'm the president of the Brookfield Lions Club. Just to give you a little bit of background,
For the record, can you give us your address?
I'm at 22 Meadowview Drive.
Thank you.
The Brookfield Lions Club is existed for about 60 years. We have 70 hardworking members that serve our communities at a local, state, national, and international level. We even have a member, some of you might know, named Mark Lyon, a Brookfield resident, who is serving as the second vice president of Lions Club International. He's in charge of 1.5 million volunteers. And we are very, very proud of that. The Brookfield Lions serve our communities for 5 reasons. For Kids Site, where we screen pre-K to 4th graders, type 1 diabetes, pediatric cancer, hunger, and environment. We've been known to give our time as volunteers and our funds raised to Brookfield Social Services, the EMTs, both firehouses, Yale Eyesight Research Center, Ann's Place, Lions Low Vision Center in Danbury, Regional Hospice, and the YMCA, to name only a few. I am here this evening to ask the town to invest in fencing what is on their property, the Gursky property at 28 Obtuse Hill Road. The town of Brookfield and the Brookfield Lions have been in partnership for about 15 years. The town owns the property, but the Brookfield Lions manage the 800 square foot, 106 plot community garden. This garden has brought much joy to our Brookfield residents, as well as served our food pantry in the summer months while harnessing a rich, vibrant, organic environment for the town. It is maintained monthly by the Lions and worked by residents of all ages. Most are of retired age, the oldest is 91. This garden also, by the way, is only open to town residents. We provide many of the tools the gardeners use, the porta-john, and on occasion we hire goats to eat the poison ivy. And in the past, inconsistently, we've hired Mark Johnson to serve the plumbing needs up there. And also, thanks to the Public Works, who has supplied the garden with mulch annually. So the problem we have encountered over the past year is, of course, with animals. Our current fencing is flimsy. They can dig easily into it, but most recently with humans, unfortunately. Our current fence has been cut multiple times over the past 2 years. Food has been stolen. We found ourselves zip tying the tops of the fences to roping, zip tying fences together just to keep the holes tight. In reviewing this issue with our board over the past year, along with our garden committee, we've decided that a new fence would be the best decision to fix the animal issue and the human issue as well. We did discuss placing cameras up there, but the gardeners were not fans. So we have presented you with 3 estimates. The best one being from Adesi Fencing for $12,800. A Lion has had experience with Adesi. They are reliable, they're reasonable, and they do high quality work. We can recommend that we contract with Adesi to install a new 8-foot hex wire fence that is deer resistant and will have 2 doors. We will provide the locks for those doors. Notice none of the people are going in through the locks, so the locking does work. Again, the quote is for no more than $12,800, and we are non-taxable 501c3, so we are tax exempt. That is all I have, so if you have any questions.
Yeah, just one quick thing, your letter to us is 12,300.
Oh, it is 800.
It is 800.
Yes.
800. You know, I've seen it, you talk about the joys of gardening there, I call it, we had a garden for 6 years and I would call it trouble and turmoil. I am not a gardener.
Okay.
My results worked out to about $60 a pound for cucumbers.
I love gardening. Hi, Amy, how are you?
Hi,
I
good.
love gardening too.
I have a lot of questions.
Sure, go for it.
First of all, it says here, garden cost sharing, but in your letter, it says that.
Yeah, originally we were going to go with cost sharing, but I didn't change the title. I thought about this extensively. This is the town property. And we as the Brookfield Lions, all our donations that come in, we say that all of our donations that come in go out to our, those in need. We don't keep any of them for maintaining our club or any of our projects that we are working on. So that would be the garden.
I see later in the agenda, we're gonna be renewing a lease, for the garden space, is that correct?
That I don't know.
No,
The Giving, oh, that's a different garden.
That's the Giving
Different
Garden
garden.
over at
The one over in
Abbey
Abbey.
Road.
So, who, has the town, okay, first of all, do we have a lease with you guys to use the?
No, no, we just manage
Why
it.
do we have a lease over here with the Giving Garden?
they're a non-Brookfield entity, and that's the only reason I can think of. And they take all of the food from that and goes to their food pantry, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so I'm not involved with
So
the,
your gardeners pay and please correct me
they,
if I'm
they
wrong,
pay a
I'm
fee
trying to
depending
back up
upon
my
the
memory
size of the
here.
garden. Yeah, they pay a fee depending.
They pay cash to the Parks
to-
and Rec Department, correct?
No, directly to the Lions.
But the money is maintained at the Parks and Rec.
No, it's maintained by the Brookfield Lions, by our treasurer.
So they pay directly to you?
Yes, we use that to maintain the garden for the porta-johns, for the goats, for
Mark Johnson.
For anything that we need to keep that up and running.
So the town, is there a precedent set where we've done this for other private organizations in the past?
Well,
You set up the fencing originally.
Yeah, we said, I think the criteria here is, one, the Lions are performing a service for the town, right, by running this facility. It is on town property. I think that the town needs to maintain our own property. And it should be noted, the fencing is now netting, which I guess worked for a while, but we've, in different
Up
times.
until about 2 years ago, it's worked, but
Yeah.
it's just
I
not.
mean, there are a lot of organizations, right? Like, I love your all's mission. I think the garden's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I'm just trying to,
No,
question, is this, first of all, where are we getting this money? And then what? you know, the VFW does great work for the town, puts up the flag poles, they pay their own gas, they buy the flags. I mean, who, is the town gonna foot that bill? Like, what are we doing
But
here?
don't they own that property?
I would think
Does
if
the
the
town own that
VFW had an
property?
expense of 12,800, yeah, they would come to us and say, hey, we've got this expense. We certainly, I think, would entertain it if it's going on town property. You know, if we were renting this garden to the Lions Club, we would expect them to maintain the entire thing and do whatever's needed. But this is a service that Lions provide to the town. It is town property. And my personal opinion is the town should pay for the fence. If the Lions leave, if they decide they can no longer run the garden, if they paid for the fence, are they allowed to take the fence with them? Because if it's their fence, you get into a real difficult situation there. I think it's a great public service. There's 106 lots. We have a lot of people who garden there. We haven't spent a lot of money on this as a town at all. We provide some mulch every year. The Lions take in the fees from the rentals of the plots, but then they use it to maintain the
Keep
property.
it running.
So I don't think the Lions are making any money, and even if any money is left over, the Lions donate every single penny they have to various different causes. So I think it's the town's responsibility to maintain this. Yes, Marcia?
One of the questions was where would the money come from? And also on that VFW, we pay for the parade for the VFW, that we reimburse them for those costs every year. The money, I would recommend that we take the money from capital non-recurring fund balance, and we don't want to fritter that money away, because we work hard to save that. We've got a plan for it. However, one of the things that we'll be looking at are the transfers from 2023, and we closed out projects equal to $102,000.
Good.
And so I think we always just have to look at making sure that we're not, you know, just nickel and diming that fund balance. But this would, we would still have added 90,000 to that in the last year, net.
Yeah, and this is an asset that will be there. A fence lasts how long? 20 years?
Hopefully more.
Maybe longer?
So this wasn't budgeted, correct?
No,
So
no, it
we're
wasn't.
coming into the winter months. I mean, what would the harm be in waiting till the next budget cycle to put it in as a request and have it officially approved instead of, you know, reaching
do
into
that.
the pot when, do you need the fence
Well, we do
tomorrow?
start in April. I mean, it's been 2 years. It is a
will-
problem.
It will need to be approved before the next budget year, that's for sure, because they do start in the beginning of April.
It doesn't seem urgent or important. I mean, it's almost $13,000 that we should not be just doing a one-off, as Marcia likes to say.
Well, we would have to do it in this budget year, because next budget year doesn't start. They'll be halfway through their season. I think $12,000 is a reasonable amount to pay for the fence. I've gotten 3 quotes.
2 quotes. And why was one so far off?
We have no idea. It was up in 30,000. It was ridiculous.
Sometimes people think you're sleeping.
There are 3 quotes there.
Were there 3? I'm sorry.
There are. Yep.
Bob, do you have any?
I know a lot of people who use this garden. I know people who've had their vegetables taken, right? I think it's a great idea. And by the way, I've zip tied that kind of plasticky fence for years, and I finally replaced it with this kind of fence too. It works great, so. But I'm kind of a little, is this something that we would do this fall, or is it something we would be installing in the?
Well, of course, we'd love to have it done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But I understand it's not an emergency.
There's no sense of urgency.
There's, yeah. So, and we have talked about, well, if, you know, we have to do it next year, we have to do it next year. As long as we know we are doing it, it's something we can put forward to the next gardening season, to the new gardeners, because we will lose people.
If we put in the original fence, we should replace it.
Yeah.
That's kind of my attitude on this, and I'm kind of indifferent on whether we do it now or do it this spring and wait and see how the winter goes. Get some consensus with the Board of Finance, you know,
Yeah.
before we actually approve it.
I think that's a good idea. I think if we, I agree with you. I think we should replace this fence as a town. I'd like to, let me bring it before the Board of Finance, have a discussion with them, and then we can revisit in January, February. They usually probably need 4 to 6 weeks lead time, the fence people, to put a fence in, and they have to wait. The only thing I'm worried about is frozen ground, right? They're gonna be putting new
Sure.
posts in,
Yeah.
and that I would be concerned, but by April, I think we would be okay, right? Don't you think?
That's right. Well, it'll give us a chance to see if any other developments roll in.
Yeah.
That's what I worry about, right?
Yeah.
It's an unbudgeted item, so it's, we gotta keep
It's a
the
fair
balance in
point.
that discussion, so.
Yeah, okay, so
But I'm supportive of this in general.
I am supportive too, Terry.
I am supportive of it, I just think we should follow the process.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, okay, so I would make a motion that we table this till our February meeting? That will give us February, March,
Just table it.
just table, and we can
Just
bring it
table-
up when we
ta-
want.
ta-
I would make
Table it, and if the Board of Finances do
Okay.
it, but do it quickly,
Okay.
then we'll come back next month.
Okay, I changed my motion. I make a motion that we table this for the time being with the intent of bringing this back up at another Board of Selectmen meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Tara seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Too bad people are stealing from there, that's terrible.
it's ridiculous. People stealing vegetables.
So
Next.
expensive.
I would vote for the cameras, but I understand why the gardeners wouldn't want to. No, no one would want to watch on my garden.
Next up, we have a presentation by Titan Energy. Julian Capados is our purchasing agent, is going to introduce this project.
Yeah, my job this evening is simply to introduce our guest speaker, Adam Teff from Titan Energy. A little bit of background here. We've dipped our toe in the water of renewable energy several times. And if there's one thing we've learned is that the more you know, the less you understand about renewable energy. So that's where Titan come in. Through a competitive selection process, the CCM, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, chose Titan as its energy procurement partner, would you say? Yep. To be a consultant to municipalities who are considering getting into renewable energy. So this is where I stop talking and I hand over to Adam.
Hi, everybody. As Julian said, I'm Adam Teff, General Manager of Titan Gen. Titan Energy and CCM have a pretty long, healthy relationship going back to 2018. For those of you who might not be familiar, CCM is an organization that represents municipal interests across the state. They also have a business services series of offerings that include energy. Town of Brookfield also participates in the traditional energy procurement program that CCM offers, basically for folks to manage their electricity and natural gas expenses via deregulated markets, so third-party energy suppliers. We work with about half the towns in the state. Like I said, we've been doing it for a long time and been in the renewable space for about 10 years now. And when we were contacted, the idea was if we could offer the services that CCM provides to Brookfield to help manage renewable energy and through an RFP process that we would administer. We'd select properties that were suitable for solar, do that upfront feasibility analysis, assist with Julian in putting an RFP out through purchasing, and then managing the process basically from start to finish until you have a finished product. And all the various tasks that kind of fall into bringing an idea on paper, to a finished product. I brought a couple slides. I don't want to inundate everybody too
Yeah, a
much.
lot of people don't understand, so if you can go through what you do on behalf of towns, how
Sure
it
thing.
works, because this is new for a
Yeah.
lot of people, and we really want people to get used to this. I think we're a little behind behind the eight ball, but we could have been looking at this a little more carefully in the past, and we probably should have. So if you just,
Yeah.
as much information as you can give us, because a lot of people watch on the.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's a fair point. The programs that have been in place now date back to 2013 or so. At last count, I think maybe about 75 to 80% of municipalities in the state have some form of solar on a municipal building or piece of property. So the programs have existed for quite a long time. They've gone through various iterations. They've improved along the way. So we're really kind of at the third generation now of the incentive programs that are here specifically to help support projects in municipalities and commercial and residential as well. But municipalities, definitely have a leg up in this program just by way of some of the rules. But for what we do, our job is to lead the process from start to finish. So analyzing the facilities that you have here, town buildings, school buildings, for solar feasibility, taking into account roof age, size of the roof, interconnection points, what you're paying for energy today, which, as was mentioned 20 minutes ago or so, Eversource costs have risen dramatically in the last couple months. So I think everybody really, whether you're a homeowner or you're at the writing the checks for a municipality, everybody's seen their Eversource bills go.
So you
go
go
up.
through the process, you look at every single town building, you analyze those buildings for ability to support solar,
Yep.
from a weight standpoint, from a location standpoint, from a angle standpoint, right?
Correct.
And then put all of that information together.
Yep, and then that's when we prepare to issue the RFP itself. So when we go out to bid, what we're looking for are vendors to come in. We'd host them on site. They'd have an opportunity to walk all the facilities, see the electric rooms, walk the roofs, etc. Have an opportunity to ask all, any questions that they have. Everybody's in the same place at the same time. Also, really encouraging a more competitive atmosphere, I think, is always a great way to get good pricing for a project. So, structuring it in such a way where that competitive element is clear to everybody just inevitably drives better results.
I'm sorry, I just got a text from somebody watching at home saying they can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
And I wonder if you
Oh, good Lord.
turn off the mic? Because this is important to folks as you
Sure.
said, watching at home.
Yeah, it says on, I believe, is it, okay, I can speak more directly into it also, or kind of
Thank
punch a
you.
little bit, if
Wendy.
that helps.
So, I see your list of towns that you've serviced. There's a lot of companies who do, I think, what you're proposing here. So why would we go with, what do we get by going through the CCM endorsed company versus doing it ourselves?
Sure. So the CCM endorsement really was CCM. The problem that they were trying to solve, which is feedback, fed by feedback from their members, was we need a resource, and not just a solar company per se to come in and build a project for us, because there are, probably half a dozen really qualified solar installers here in the state that could do a project like this. But a solar developer is probably going to give you a pretty one-sided story on, what a good project looks like, what market is for power contracts if you enter into one with a solar developer, etc. We're really better positioned to be on the side of the table of the actual user, the end user of solar, as opposed to just being another solar company to come in and tell you what we think.
Yeah, can I jump in 1 second there?
Sure.
We started to look at this when I first took office, and we had one solar company come in, and they only wanted to do CLES. Brand new building, they have all the specs, they have the architectural drawings, it's a no-brainer, here's our price. What Titan does is their act, like Arcadis
You
did.
mean when you first took office years ago, or this
No,
time?
about 5 months ago.
Because I remember Greg telling me that you looked into this with panels on the roof of this building that would tie into cars. They would service the cars with electricity if we transfer our vehicles
No,
to
we
electric.
did apply for a couple grants to get charging stations here at Town Hall. We didn't win those grants, but the difference here is that was a solar company coming directly to us, giving us a quote for CLES.
I did that.
We don't know whether it's a good quote, a bad quote, it's just one company. Titan acts as Arcadis does on the CLES. They would be the owner's agent. They go out, and it gets really complicated. The size of the building, the number of panels, the electricity you need, the piping, the wiring, all of these things are really complicated. So Titan would go out, create an RFP in a sense for us. Tell me if I'm wrong, where I go off.
Yep, that's
and
correct.
then solicit from all the various solar providers. Here's what we've got. Here's our specs. Here's the details. Here's the buildings you can use. Here's a building you can't use. Here's a roof we can't put anything on because we've got to replace the roof next year or the year after. They solidify and codify all of our capabilities and all of our facilities, and then take it out to bid on behalf of the town.
Right, and then
Is that
when
a fair assessment?
it is, and then the other hurdle that a lot of towns face is that when the results come in, they're not necessarily sure how to interpret them, right? And if you're going to make a 20-year commitment to a solar company, a solar project, having somebody that can vet all of that, make it apples to apples where it's not, and if we do our job well in the RFP, the idea is everything comes back in as streamlined and, you know, like for like as possible, but inevitably that doesn't happen. If you've ever bid out anything, you know that you get back what you get back, right? In spite of the best instruction to give people. So where the rubber would really hit the road again for a board like this, if we ran this process, I would be back here and say 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever the time frame was, with all of the results from the RFP spelled out very clearly, everything completely, you know, dialed in, so you had options that were, you know, feasible, they were fact-checked and good to go, and the decision at that point would be completely up to the town as to which direction they want to go.
And comparable.
They got to be comparable,
Bids
because if
sometimes come
you,
back.
yeah, and
This
that's
guy's quoting this guy's quoting
yeah,
that.
and
You have no idea.
and the complicating factor too, and you know, this is different than procuring something that's like a pure commodity, and part of the reason has to do with how the incentive programs work. They're very complicated, and you have agency within the program to ask for certain amounts. We're then selected from another series of competitive process to get incentive awards from the utility. So there's multiple dimensions here of complexity, not just the project itself, designing a good project and making sure that the specs are all good and it's buildable and it's real and you're going to get what you thought. But then bringing that through and ushering it through the utility incentive program is kind of the next phase of the whole thing, which again is just, if you've never done it before, it's the kind of thing where I don't recommend learning on yourself, being your own guinea pig. We've done it about 30 times or so throughout, you know, the last 10 years. Municipalities have been, you know, a core group for us. I think we understand from a contracting perspective what municipalities are typically looking for, the kind of assurances they need, kind of insurances they need to in those contracts. And really our job is to make sure this gets done efficiently, gets done well, and you get a finished product that's going to do what you hope it's going to do.
So
at
with
the
the
end of it.
RFPs, can the town require that, like certain stipulations that the solar panels are only come from America? Like how do we
Yeah, sure. So
make sure they're not coming from
yeah. So I provide the bones, right, and then we fill it in based on what you want to do, where you want to see it, what kind of project you want, how we work with the incentive program, all that good stuff, and we can specify whatever the town likes within the RFP. I mean, it's a document that really it goes out, you know, into the world with your name on it. You know, we circulate it to the vendors that we work with, but we always put it through the purchasing, you know, channels for the town. And I always tell everybody, you can ask for whatever you'd like. There's no reason why you couldn't specify a certain type of panel, or if you want to specify that the company that installs and owns it is Connecticut-based. I mean, all sorts of different things come up depending on what your needs are. And my job is to work, you know, with the select board, work with Julian to make sure that the RFP, when it's ready to go, is to everybody's liking, so that when the results come back in, you know, we've gotten in front of some of those key issues that might be, you know, near and dear to folks' hearts, like right out of the gate.
So would we get like a discount on these products because we're members of CCM, or what is the perk here? Like, again, what is the end state? What is the return on investment? Because it's going to take years for us to pay for this thing and then start, what do you
Sure.
call it?
So here's
Having a
Rewards, as
zero,
it were.
right.
yeah, exactly. So the way that the vast majority of solar projects for municipalities work is that they're third party owned. I'm agnostic one way or another. I've been in plenty of situations where we've put out to bid a request to have, and I'm going to get a little jargony here, so forgive me, but what's called a power purchase agreement. Basically what that means, if you haven't heard that term before, as the name implies, company ABC, they come in, they bid, you select a company, and the agreement ends up being that they own, operate, maintain the equipment, and simply sell you power. It's basically like a utility ratepayer relationship, except the equipment's on your premise.
We're leasing them our roof.
But it's not even so much a lease. It's because you are granting them the ability to use that space for their equipment, but the commercial relationship is just they produce power, you buy it, and typically it's done at a fixed price for 20 years. So when it's done well, that would be an immediate cost reduction. So let's say Eversource is 15 cents, you're 11, right? That delta is your savings. And then from there it's price stability too. So typically I write these RFPs so that the results are fixed price 20 years. You could do an escalator if you wanted, but I think a lot of folks from a budgeting perspective would are happy to see some portion of their electric cost get fixed at a low price over a period of time. It's not going to cover everything. It's very rare do you ever have the ability to put solar everywhere. We've already had some preliminary conversations about where it may be feasible. The two locations that have come up would be some areas of the high school that have been re-roofed, and also the new elementary school. Perhaps town hall, some others, and we have yet to get to that phase where we've started work putting together layouts and talking about actual placement. But
And then there's other, excuse me, but just the menu, like options on the menu, like putting charging stations in the parking lot here, or having a fleet of vehicles that are electric. I mean, there's different layers of this whole kit and caboodle, right? Like I see in your example.
Well,
these
how we
people
use
have
the
Tesla
electricity is
battery
a different
packs.
discussion.
yeah, and,
Putting solar on our roofs.
and it's sort of
Titan
to
doesn't put in car chargers.
yeah, so just to touch on that too, the CCM energy program is actually pretty broad. We do manage their EV charging program, traditional commodities, there's the energy efficiency division. So there's actually a lot that falls under the CCM energy program. I just happen to lead the charge, no pun intended, on the renewable side of things. But we've done projects that included EV charging and things like that too. So
Well, if
we
you're
have
gonna throw solar panels up, I mean, wouldn't you want to go after it all at the same time instead of, have
it just
the
depends on
backpedal here?
what the client is looking to get from the project. Not everybody feels the urge to put EV chargers where they put solar, and sometimes they want EV chargers where solar doesn't work. We have actually a lot of flexibility, and some of those are just case studies in the back. Is the Titan Gen CCM renewable program? We've done fuel cells, we've done batteries, we've done cogen, we've done solar. So different technologies, but lion's share of the projects for municipalities end up being some form of solar.
Have you guys spoken with our energy committee?
No, not yet.
No.
They're
That'd
bringing
probably
up
be a
the
good
thing.
idea.
Let's continue the conversation. So
Yeah.
you can do power purchase. Where they
Sure.
own
So
all the-
yeah, and maybe I went on a tangent there. So power purchase agreement, that's a zero cost out of pocket option that for anybody, but municipalities in particular typically go that direction because these projects can be capital intensive. A lot of times, trying to find money in the budget for a project of this size can be a challenge. So, and there's typically always something else that needs immediate attention financially. So this is discretionary in the sense that you don't have to do it, but if you do it, the idea is to reduce your costs. So the way that most municipalities get the benefit from this is just simply lowering their energy costs as soon as the system is installed, and let the ownership burden stay with the folks that install it.
And the other extreme of that is we own it all.
You could own it outright if you want it, and that's something I've walked folks through the financial modeling to show what the returns are, so you can get a sense of, hey, is this even something, it might not be like a today thing, but maybe a tomorrow thing. Is this worth doing under those terms as well? I'm indifferent to it, so I just follow the lead of the client to ask, if they ask me to bid it out both ways, then that's what we do. Some folks know right off the bat, it's not for me, ownership's not for me, and that's fine. But people like to see the numbers as well too, so it's not more work for us. And if it gets you the answers that you need or want, then that's perfectly fine with us.
Yeah, I think we probably want to look at it both ways and see the cost-benefit analysis. If we buy it all ourselves, what's our break even? Is it 12 years? Is it 15 years? Is it 8 years? Versus a power purchase, right? What's the return over a long period of time?
Sure, yeah.
And look at that,
Yeah.
right?
And that's,
Part of
that is
the-
part of the process.
Part of
And
the process.
as we help, our clients navigate their way through this, that's typically something that, you know, for those that are interested in doing it, is a step along the journey. And if you get to a place where you decide that, yes, we want to do this project and we have a sense of how we want, you know, the ownership structure to work, then there's a contract, either a power purchase agreement itself, which is that the contract that spells out the terms and conditions if, you know, the party that is chosen ends up installing and operating and the town buys power, or just, you know, a more generic construction agreement for a project if they were going to build it for your ownership. So, and then the last step in the process is just, you know, we stay on board for a 12-month period to make sure, you know, we're performing a measurement and verification period so you know that you were getting what you were supposed to get from it. We don't want to just hand the keys over and, you know, wish you the best. We want to make sure that, you know, you're actually getting what you're supposed to get from it.
Let's discuss how you get remunerated.
Sure.
You want to go through that?
Yeah, sure. So the way that it's structured, and this was basically a requirement of CCM in terms of how, you know, we get paid. When we put out the project or the RFP itself, we have a project management fee that gets put into the RFP. If all goes well and the town enters into an agreement with a solar company and the project gets built and, you know, we secure the incentives and do everything that we were supposed to do, we get paid in milestones. It's basically a third, a third, a third. First third is when we secure the incentive. So that's because it's a big part of really pivotal to the project working at all. When the project is shovel ready, quote unquote, so ready to build, fully permitted, good to go. And third, when it's energized officially by the utility and operational.
And who pays you?
Yeah, so the developer that's selected is ultimately responsible for compensating Titan. So there's no circumstance under which the town is then made responsible for payment to us. And if at any point along the way, this, you know, 5-step process here, if you decide, hey, we don't really want to do this, it's not for us, you retain total right to back out. You know, you don't have to give me a reason. It could be
No
for
foul, no harm.
whatever. Exactly.
No fee?
Right. So you are only bound to anything when you engage directly with and contract with the vendor that's selected from the RFP process. That's really where the rubber hits the road for the town. Until that point, we're effectively, you know, at risk to not be paid eventually. But
So you could be
CCM was very
investing a fair bit of time and effort and work and not achieve a result that you want.
Yeah, I mean, the CCM was pretty clear that the way the feedback from municipalities is that it can be really difficult to get moving, especially on something that could have an uncertain future because you don't know what you're making a decision on yet. You haven't seen any proposals. You just maybe are contemplating, hey, this might work for us. We're in an age of rising costs. What do we do, right? So it's structured as such to be as flexible of a program for municipalities to use as possible. And the fee that comes back to us is about 5% of the overall project cost. So it's basically on par with, like, you know, any project management service for like a construction project is usually 5 to 8% of the project cost. And part of the CCM RFP that they issued is that they wanted to try to make companies like Titan compete for that, and you know, they selected the lowest bidder for that, which was us. Based on our track record too, we've been doing this for a long time and CCM's been happy and they actually just extended us for another 5 years. So the program's healthy, it's working well, but that's where our fees are derived from, that process.
So would you have, it's not in here, but would you have case studies with other towns? Like, here's Monroe, here's what they did, here's what we did for them, here's the decision they made.
Yep.
Here's the decision points they made, and then we can look at those, because this gets really complicated, believe it, it really does. Does that make sense to look at?
Yeah, I mean, we have plenty of case studies. I mean, we put some snippets in the, you know, in what I gave to you guys to not inundate everybody with work that we've done.
Yeah.
But I mean, municipal renewable energy procurement is our bread and butter. So I'd be happy to. I believe I've circulated a couple. I'd be happy to bring them back around again.
Yeah.
Is there any data that kind of shows trends, how New England fares with renewable energy versus like California, for example, or I mean, we're just kind of in the infancy stages of this here in our area, I think. I mean,
We're about
10
we're
years,
about 10 years in. I mean,
so
I would
still young, but
maybe. I mean, solar's time, you know, I mean, as a technology, it's been around for about 50 years, so it's not new. The real innovations, I think, have come in like the legislative policies that have come around to help support it. I mean, that's really like the shot in the arm that it needed, right? And I always tell people, like, look, if the federal government is willing to, you know, contribute to the project, the local utilities are mandated to create a program to help incentivize it. Like, you've got the wind at your back. When those things go away, then, you know, you're in a different paradigm, whatever that might be. So the incentives are there, and that bears out when you see the results of, okay, if we can reduce our cost, you know, 30% or so with solar.
Yeah, without putting you on the
Yeah.
spot, could you highlight just a couple towns you work with and what they've done and how much they saved? Rough.
Yeah, sure. And one I just actually put together recently, I think is a pretty interesting one because it's very thorough and we touched on a lot of different things. So, City of West Haven, we did 3 of their schools, all have rooftop solar. Landfill is starting construction this month. We did, we applied for and are in P&Z right now for carports for their police station. And we also got them, not to muddy the waters, because there's different things we can do here, but we actually got them financial credits from an off-site project in a different town. So that's a little bit more scale, I think, than Brookfield in terms of how many buildings we might do. But, and I can circulate this around, but grand total is about $300,000 a year for them, all in, with all the projects.
$300,000 what?
Saved.
Cost?
Yeah, saved.
On a total spend prior?
0.
No.
Oh, you mean for me? Oh, total spend.
Did they go from 1.5 million to
question.
1.2 million?
From a city-wide, probably like 3.5 million.
So 10% saved?
Yeah.
Somewhere in
Yeah, but they have I mean, there's so much energy cost that we can't reasonably touch, like street lights and things like that. And, you know, their wastewater plant, you know, had a fuel cell already before we got there. So that, you know, that took out a big chunk of it too. So, you know, you basically pick it up where you can, right? If you've got roofs that work, if you've got, you know, open space, sometimes you can build ground mounts and things like that.
And contracts typically go for 20 years?
Typically 20, because that's the incentive programs are 20 years long.
Okay.
So they like to mirror that term. The equipment's typically good for longer than that, but after the end of the, you know, when the incentive revenue stream is exhausted, then people just, you know, want the option to be able to revisit. So
what was West Haven's capital investment?
0. This was all done 0. They don't own any of the projects. It's all power purchase agreements. Yeah. And then I'm just trying to think like smaller towns like South Windsor Public Schools. We're just wrapping up basically what's become like a 5-year engagement with them, steadily going through each school as it got a new roof or was built. They have a few new elementary schools, then the high school got a re-roof, et cetera. So that rolled out in phases. Grand tally there, I believe, was, you know, about 120,000 or so saved.
And now they're putting solar over their landfill?
That was West Haven. Yeah, so South Windsor Public Schools, that's, yeah, what I just referenced. They were the one that, you know, unfolded over time. A couple new elementary schools, re-roof. On the high school, they just re-roofed their middle school, so we'll be starting construction this summer on that. So, you know, different, and obviously smaller towns too. I mean, Brookfield, I wouldn't put Brookfield in the small town category, but you're obviously not a big city or urban either. But, you know, just a little sampling
I
off the
saw
top
that
of my
you
head.
had a project over in Southbury. Do you recall what that project?
Yeah, so those were for the schools. So we did Rochambeau and Longmeadow. One was a carport, one was a ground mount. And that's going back a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah. But those projects have been great. The savings have worked out really well. I think the district is really happy with them. So that's probably the closest. Again, just doing this from memory, trying to pinpoint, you know, where we are here. So.
Yeah, I think on things like this, the big plus for towns is that we don't lock in any expense or cost to the town until we're satisfied that this would really work for us, right?
That's the
And
goal. I mean, to
we
get it
do
to a point where
lot of
you,
groundwork ahead of the time, betting that the town will accept and sign on, right?
yeah, I mean, there's probably a good 6 months of, you know, nose down, pencils down, trying to put together the place where we come back together and say, these are your options. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see more of those case studies, if you could send us some of those. Do you have references? Could we get references?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've definitely provided that along the way, and happy to
Okay,
resend a
and
list of
we'll do some
municipalities that I think are similar in size, disposition, that kind of
I
thing.
think we need to look at solar. I really do.
There's no doubt in my mind we have to do something with solar in this town. I just, this is new, right, to me, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see what
Absorbing
other
it.
people's experiences have been.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And review that. And then if you could send us all of that, I'll distribute it to the Board of Selectmen. And I think then we'll ask you back and then have a more substantive discussion. Does that make sense to you guys? Right?
Yeah. So I'll get you case studies and the references.
Right.
Any other questions that come in along the way, just send them my way.
Yeah,
so.
we will shoot them to Julian, who will coordinate with you. We real,
I'm sorry, you do projects that you do stepwise with schools as they're changing sections of their roof or updating their roof?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of schools, like, you know, you have additions over time, right? So you might have one half of the school that was built, you know, in the 80s, the other half's built, you know, in the 2000s, and then they're on different roof cycles. Well, 20 and 20, that might sync up eventually, but you know what I mean. They could be on completely different cycles where you're re-roofing half at a time, and
yeah.
Well, we have a whole,
find
we have a
ourselves.
whole 10-year plan going on right now, both at the high school and the middle school, to revamp the roofs where needed. And
Yeah.
I would want to make sure we're doing them right so that we can put solar up there.
Yes.
And get intercepting them before we're going and contracting those, I
Right.
think is really important.
I
yeah, for
agree.
sure.
I agree. This has been really informative. I appreciate very much your coming and spending the time with us,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
And we'll
appreciate
get
you
that
having me.
information, I'll get it to the boards, and then we'll be back in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep,
Thank you,
absolutely.
guys.
Okay, we'll go out this way.
Okay. Next on our agenda is announcements. A public hearing this Thursday at 7 p.m. at the high school on the possible lease of land to Homeland Towers for the placement of a monopole cell tower. Coffee with the Community will be October 26th from 9 to 10 at the Brookfield Library, new location. Again, we urge people to sign up for a Spotlight newsletter and emergency notification by Everbridge. You can go on to the brookfieldct.gov, click on the subscribe icon. Please also encouraging people to follow the Town of Brookfield, Connecticut Emergency Management Facebook page with the storms and things that are going on. That's always a good idea. The registrars is looking for people to work at the polling places for the 14 days of early voting and the upcoming November election. These are paid positions. Apply at the registrar's office. Vacancies on boards and commissions. The Art Commission has an opening. The Building Code of Appeals has an opening. Energy Advisory Board has one opening. Farmers Market, we have a bunch of open positions on that right now. Inland Wetlands, there's one member position and 2 alternates available. Municipal Building, there is 1 member and 1 alternate available. Planning Commission, they're looking for 1 member. Police Building Ad Hoc Committee, there are 7 members. We're still looking for people to possibly join that committee. The WPCA, there is 1 alternate member position available. Youth Commission, there's 2 alternates. Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 alternate, and Zoning Commissioner, 1 alternate. And that brings us to our monthly financial update. Marcia.
All right. And I apologize in advance. This is the longest meeting that we have for finances because we're closing out 2024 and we are also looking at the first quarter of 2025.
Right.
So the first things we'll talk about are the 2024 financial statements. You have it in your file for the expenditures for 2024. The numbers have been audited, so this should be the final transfers of 2024. We didn't do any at June 30th, just in case there were any changes during the audit. that intra-department transfers, there's 128,000 on intra-department transfers, and the biggest one of those, approximately a third of that, is police overtime. That we had a number of vacancies that were unexpected vacancies that were unexpected, and also new people. Both of those take extra overtime for the police officers to either cover the vacancy, to have the minimum number of officers on the shift, or to work with a new person for riding together. So we're asking for 128,150 in intra-department transfers. And then we're also looking at inter-department transfers. Legal fees for 12,985, and with legal fees, we have encumbered some of those purchase orders that, and it's easiest to think about in blight. At the time, there were 2 blight cases last year, and we had estimates from the attorneys of how much it would take to cover those blight cases. We made transfers in 2024 to cover them, and then the cases were delayed. Well, we've already found the money, we've already covered that, and so we carried over those encumbrances. And that's the same with the other legal fees. There just happen to be more of them. Is 12,985 that we'd like to add to legal fees, $884 to add to labor legal. Volunteer fire department, they had an emergency heating repair at the Brookfield, the center fire department, for $23,785. And then we've got this situation with a one-time, we believe it to be one-time, although we don't know that Eversource is going to drop the fees later. They said that this one-time increase will probably just go to April 30th. And the estimate is that's going to cost the town $250,000 for this one-time increases, and 150 of that is at the school. That's included in their shortage, and 100 is at the town. And what we'd like to do is, since this is a non-recurring expense, take some of the underages that we've had in other lines, transfer it to capital and non-recurring as a non-recurring expense, and pay for that big increase in 2025 out of that fund. So that's the 250. And as far as where does that money come from, I looked at every line that had $4,000 or more in it and tried to pull the numbers, the money out of each of those lines to cover these inter-department transfers. Any questions on any of that?
The 287,000 on underages, that seems like a pretty large number to me.
93,000 is the school that they had asked for more money, and that was just an estimate because we wanted to do it far in advance, and they just kept it tight. And they said that they wouldn't spend it all. That was their estimate at the time, and they weren't going to fritter it away, and they didn't. So 93,000 is from that. But if you look at, we've got 11 pages of lines, and every line is required to be under. And if you take a little bit from everything, it does add up fast. I can look here quickly to see what the biggest ones were.
That's the blue column in the attachment?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything with brackets around it in the blue column. Health insurance had 12,000. Some of the
But you're right, it's a lot of bits here and there, isn't it?
yeah, some of the leaves and vacancies, as you say in the Board of Ed, The highway department, 17,000 in, repairs and maintenance, which is a small amount compared to that number, but it's essentially, we had to go down to anything over 4,000 that, and take it. Utilities, 24,000. Library in their salaries that they didn't spend 25,000. Human services that we increased their budget for programs because we were increasing their revenue, and they didn't spend all the expenses. Grounds, 41,000. So those are the biggest of those.
So for the fire department heater, did we vote on that already?
Oh,
Or is this part of the vote tonight?
that's part of the vote tonight.
Did that go through normal procurement with bids?
No, it did not. It was an emergency. They did not have heat. They hired a company. Whenever, because we fund so much of the fire department, in fact, 100% of their operating budget, you know, we have them now on the Munis system, and we are going to be asking and requiring them to go through our normal process for bidding. But this was an emergency. They had no heat, and they had to have the repair done. That's why.
Okay.
So we have the receipts on that?
Yeah.
Or-
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Any other questions for Marcia on this?
What are we paying for electricity at Center School?
We're getting bills from Constellation, who's the provider there, of in the thousands of dollars. And the reason we're getting bills in the thousands of dollars is they're estimating our bill based on prior usage. So Julian has gone back to them now 5 months in a row and said, no, here's a picture of our meter, here's the fee. They've lowered it to $500 a month. But they still haven't come out and actually done a meter reading and reset their calculations. They're doing an estimate. So we're getting these bills, we send them back, they're incorrect, they correct them. So it's running right now about $500 a month for Center Elementary.
And do we believe we're consuming $500 a month of
We
electric? then?
do, that
Do we have
there's
lights on the outside? and things like
Emergency
that?
lights, there's an alarm system, but they've turned off everything else that they can turn off. That we don't
Yeah.
think the value is 500, but with Eversource, that's
Yeah.
what they're giving us.
So it's gone down from thousands to 500. I still think it's
Correct.
outrageous, but
So
And,
were
and that
we
very first
overpaying?
bill for 5,000.
no, we're being overcharged.
They keep saying that, oh, they'll adjust it, and the purchasing manager has talked to them 3 times. We've sent them a picture of the
Meter.
meter. They were just basing this July on last July, and last July it was still being used as a school for summer school.
So we're still working with them. We're not paying these bills. We're just saying, hey, here's the meter. Then they make an adjustment. Then we get a new bill the next month. We go back to them. They make another adjustment. And I got a feeling the way their process works, it'll go on for 12 months. Till they get a new 12-month running rate. I don't know why they just don't read read the meter. It would be a little easier, but that's, so Julian's on top of that. Okay. Any further questions, issues, concerns on these? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the intra-department transfers for year-end 2024 as noted on the budget versus actual expenditure report in the amount of $128,150.08. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries 3-0. On interdepartment transfers, I will make a motion to approve the interdepartment transfers for year-end 2024 as noted on the budget versus actual expenditure report and to forward to the Board of Finance for their approval in a total amount of $287,653.99, both decreases and increases. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Carries 3-0. Thank you very much.
All right, the next report you have, number 2 for year-end 2024, is the revenue report. This would be very similar to the last one that you saw. The biggest change in the revenue report is we have to wait till August 31st to calculate the taxes on a modified accrual basis. You have to wait till the 60 days has ended. So that is no activity, or we're not looking for any changes there. The next one.
What, do I read that we overran our revenue estimates for the year by about a little over $3 million?
That is correct. That is correct. And the biggest being interest, that one, we weren't supposed to have so much money, and two, we weren't supposed to have the interest rates stay as high as they did for as long as they did. We've got about the best deal going on interest rates, that our bank matches the stiff rates. State Treasurer's Investment Fund. The Treasurer's Investment Fund is not insured, ours is insured. So we've been getting about 5.5%. Then the concern becomes arbitrage. We did have an arbitrage calculation during the year, and we do not owe a refund at this time. But we'll have to keep checking it every year to be sure of that.
There's a big item on blight fines. Are those fines accrued for or actually paid?
Those are fines that are actually paid. We do have blight fines accrued, but then they're offset by deferred revenue because we don't know that they're going to be collected in the next 60 days or year. So those that you see in the revenue are cash collections.
Okay. And the $500,000 of tax collection, is that positive news on prior unpaid, or is there some other unique dynamic going on the top, the first section in the report?
So there is, it's based on unpaid money that we've had some tax sales that we weren't able to have during COVID, and about 98,000 is from the sale from the CRT program, or CTR program, where they're looking for vehicles that were not included in, where people have vehicles housed in Brookfield, but they don't report them. So that is a chunk of that, and you'll see that there's a negative. I think it's 44,000. Sorry, that I think it's 44,000. That's a negative. That's the fees that go against that extra collection.
Okay.
For the new law that went into effect on the 1st of October for the totally disabled veterans, the tax waiver, do we have any idea of how much?
Her last estimate is about 100,000.
Yeah, there's about 10, I think 10 veterans who qualify
Something like
in
that.
town. And Tammy estimates it's right around 100,000. That will go.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. The one with the pink on the top, 2024 year end, number 3, is transfers between the capital and non-recurring funds that we're mostly trying to close out different projects that had extra money in them. Some of these, like the 10,280, we're looking as an increase. That's because it was a revenue that we're closing out. Kids Kingdom, we're combining 2 budgets into one, and the Turf Stadium, that we had a reserve for that, and we didn't have to spend the reserve, so I'm just recommending we move it back to a reserve. That's 150,000. So we're looking to close, the net amount is 77,542. There's another 25 that we had set aside down below for projects. That's how I got to the 102 earlier. But this closes out 77,542 to the positive.
Any questions on that from anyone? I don't have any.
Has the capital committee met lately?
No, we're gonna form them and notify them this month to start.
No, they're formed.
Yeah.
They're formed.
They're
We just
formed.
gotta ask them to start
They,
meeting.
I'm surprised they haven't been meeting regularly.
Yeah, I am too. I will go back to them and ask them. Okay, so on capital non-recurring fund, I would make a motion to approve the proposed transfers between projects in a capital non-recurring fund for the June 30th, 2024 fiscal year, as shown on the attached report, and forward that to the Board of Finance for their review and possible agreement. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. Marcia.
And then number 4, in the blue at the top for year-end 2024, the primary thing in here, I think it's all Board of Ed, and this has gone through their facilities committee, that they need more money in the replacing the guidance wing and rooftop air conditioner, that they had thought they would need more than this, and then it was, they re-engineered it, so they need 40,000 there. They're going to take some of that. It's got to be taken from the same bond year. They're going to take some of it from the security measures and the boys' locker room money. They also need, which is finalized, the last, it was picked up as a payable June 30th, and the last check went out, I think, last week.
So that's done, closed?
Financially,
Yay.
and then the original electrical service, they need more money there. We had taken more than this away from it because they thought they had an excess. And as they were going through this, one of the code regulations had changed, and so that's why they're looking for some of what they gave us to come back.
And that's at Wisconsin, the electrical at Wisconsin.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
On the security measures, why are we taking money away?
We're taking 1,400 away. That one, it's the same bond year, and two, it's been out. They have plans for it, but it's been outstanding since 2022, and we want to spend the bonds within 3 years. So that was a big portion of it, but we're only taking 1,400 away.
I'm not in favor of that. I mean, anything for security, especially after what we've been through in this town over the last 6 months. We need what
We do
can
have a
get.
requirement to spend our funds within 3 years. That's what's driving this, right?
So those security measures, because I remember when we did those, they had a very specific list of projects to
Yep.
them. Did they complete the projects, and this is money that's left over?
They have budgets to complete the projects. They haven't completed all the projects,
But their budget
But
says
they have
they
enough
will
funding?
be
They-
underrunning on
correct.
those projects.
Okay.
that's correct.
Yeah, so the cost came in lower.
Correct.
Okay.
We're
So
not.
we're not taking anything away from the schools. They have enough money to do everything they want. This is left over.
Yeah, we had a very specific list of things on
Yeah.
doors and cameras and windows and bollards and,
Right.
you know, and all of those things I've been seeing them go in, so.
Yes, they still, even after we take that they still have $177,000.
With projects
With-
still
for their
underway on
projects.
those.
Correct.
Okay. And if they need additional funds, they'll come to us.
And I think I have just seen that I have an error here, and I apologize for that. As I'm going through, that I've went kitty corner on some lines here. The security measures we're taking out 39,000. I apologize for this. The security measures, we're taking out 39,000. It's paving that we're taking 1,400. And the 9,006,
Is the
Need-
locker room. I can see it, yeah.
yep, is, I should have used a ruler. The 9,006 is the boys' locker room.
Yeah, which you've got correctly mentioned here. The 39 is,
All right, 208.
So you're saying the 39 is really HS 209?
That's
Security
correct.
measures?
That's correct.
You
The,
just flip-flop the numbers, I think.
Yeah.
I moved up a row. So
Yeah.
the boys' locker room, we're taking 9,006. I talked to the MBC, and that's fine. That was fine with them.
Okay.
Security measures, 39,443. They're still able to do everything that they wanted to do. And then the paving was about a $500,000 project, and I'm taking 1,443.
so you said you went to the MBC and they agreed that you could take the first one. Did the Board of Ed agree that you could take these other two?
Yes, the
The board or the superintendent?
the facilities
The committee
committee.
actually voted on it?
They voted for what they needed, and I can't remember the vote exactly if they said where it was coming from, but they were,
They're comfortable, they've got what they
correct.
need. This is just excess right now.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm glad you corrected that. I would make a motion to approve the proposed transfers between projects and the bonded capital project fund as shown on the attached report through June 30th, 2024, and forward to the Board of Finance for their review and possible approval with the changes just mentioned, and I would say we would update the report to the Board of Finance to reflect what Marcia just told us.
Yep, and the report is correct. It's just my summary
The
comments
totals
for
are
your
correct.
information.
Yeah, the titles of
The
the two line
titles are
items are
correct.
wrong, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Do I have a
Second.
second on that? You second, Bob?
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 I'm a no.
Okay. 2, 1, yeah. Okay. ARPA funding, Marcia.
ARPA funding is orange at the top of the report, number 5. And we're just closing various equipment for fire departments. That was just, it came in under budget. Fire departments are fine with that. Social Services Resource Center came in under budget. They're fine with that. So we'll take 2,645 and we'll add that to fund balance.
That makes sense. Any questions for Marcia? No? Okay, I would make a motion to approve the proposed transfers between projects in the ARPA fund as shown on the attached report through June 30th, 2024, and forward to the Board of Finance for their review and possible approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on that?
Just a quick question about ARPA in general. I mean, how much longer are we gonna be talking about ARPA?
So December 31st, or earlier, that we have 4,000 out there for the fire department. They are getting us that bill. About 2 weeks ago, they said that we may have it. I just don't have it. And then we have our social services police liaison being paid out of that, and it is expected that it'll all be used up by December 31st, and we had put that in the budget to start being paid with tax dollars after that.
Okay, great, that makes sense.
Is there anything that, like, the town has to do to close it out, or how do we kind of solidify?
We've been closing the projects as we go along for anything that has excess money, because we don't want to get in a situation where we're worried that we're not going to use it by December 31st. We could do encumbrances, but I think that that would not have been wise, so that's why we didn't do it, because if you underspend the encumbrance, now you've lost the money.
Yeah.
So there's nothing. We're using it in this year's budget for revenue, one-time revenue to cover the debt bubble. And that would be it.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3-0.
All right, the purple one is the town grant fund. Nothing you have to do there, just shows you all the different grants and the status of them at the beginning of the year, what came in, what went out, and what's there at the end of the year. And then number 7 in the yellow highlights is the police, different police funds, showing you what they've got set aside there. That completes 2024. Any questions on anything 2024? All right.
Nope, let's move on.
2025, you have the brown highlight at the top for expenditure, number 1 under 2025, and motion to approve intra-department transfers for 131,000, all shown on the report. That's the pluses and the minuses for the intra-department transfers. And then a motion to approve inter-department transfers. For the inter-department transfers, they're listed there. We've got about 40,000 of additions. Let's see, the biggest one is the pension contributions, that more people are taking the 401A instead of the defined benefit plan. And that has a cost right up front, and an eventual savings in the defined benefit plan, but not in the same year. The good news is our volunteer firefighters are increasing in numbers, and so we needed more money to cover that. We've had a change in the cleaning companies, even without the change, the company that we had was going to be charging us more money, so we need more money there. We need more in just different changes to wages or coverage during the year. Recording clerks, we're always running short there because there's just a lot of meetings and the land use boards. So we're taking the money. Finance, we restructured and we have savings of 3,000 there. The tax appeals, one of the cases is closed, and so we're estimating a savings there. The code books are delayed, so we have a savings there. Cyber insurance actually decreased, so we have a savings there. Workers' comp, for now, we have money. We may have more because we do allocate some at the end of the year. We've estimated it'll be 9,000 that is the cost in the police outside services fund, but in the past it's been more than 9, so we may have more savings later. Union wages for let's see. Oh, the Social Security, where the police, we're moving some to Social Security for their restructuring and getting a part-time records clerk. CES carrying costs, at the time we did the budget, we were still paying $1,200 or so in electricity, and that's gone down to $550, so we should have a savings there. And the cell tower, the Vale Road rent, it has not been signed yet. We should have some savings there.
Beyond that, we got Homeland Tower to agree to a 90-day freeze before they start charging us.
So it's 3 months of rent.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Any further questions on that?
There's a line buried in the intra that's an increase in the police department of 11,000 on travel and conferences.
So we had some savings. I have a worksheet on it that I can share, but we had savings because when we did the budget, we had 4 experienced officers, and they're being replaced by 4 brand-new officers, because there were 4 that left.
So is that their school
And
cost?
so that's the school
That's
of
their
the
school
4
cost,
new
okay, that's all I
officers.
needed to know,
The
that's the
school
school
and
cost.
uniforms, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so to make it easier for
That
them.
did, traveling conferences didn't quite fit as a description there, that's why it sounded, that sounds
Yeah,
something
that's how they
like
fit it under
completely different, so.
Yep.
Yeah, so Pete Frings asked me, and I have agreed to give them BK1 to commute up to Academy.
Okay.
Right? Rather than somebody charging us personal mileage, so they'll have that for a few months.
Okay,
Maybe you can get that car to die.
I got it.
Yeah.
So what is the health department using?
I'm sorry.
Which vehicle is the health department using?
They're using their vehicles, I think they use sometimes personal vehicles. They do have one assigned to them.
Think they got I have a hard time keeping track of them all, but I believe they got a hand-me-down vehicle from the police, and they had one in the budget.
That sounds right. And BK1 is available to anybody who wants it, but I don't think many people use it. So it's good to let the police use it. So I would make a motion to approve the intra-department transfers for year-end 2025 as noted on the budget versus actual expenditure report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Just on the legal,
I'm sorry,
you're on interest still, right?
I'm on intra.
What was that? Is that 56? I don't know where it is right now. 50, oh, never mind, that's inter, I'll hold my question.
So, you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I don't.
Okay. I made the motion, having a second. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries 3-0. On the inter-department transfers, I would make a motion to approve the inter-department transfers for year-end 2025 as noted on the budget versus actual expenditure report and forward it to the Board of Finance for their review and possible approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on this?
This is my legal question. So, the 56, oh, I'm sorry, that's under personnel. What is this? The certification for the $5,600, did you already say what that was, Marcia?
Yeah, that's certification for our manager, for Lisa. She gets certification, and we paid for that. And so the agreement with Lisa was that she would get a raise if she became certified, and she did.
And
So we
what is
needed
that
to
certification?
increase that budget line by 5,600.
What is that certification?
I don't know the exact name, but she got a full certification from one of the certifying authorities. We can get that information for you.
Is that like required? What is her title?
Right now, she's manager of human resources.
So, yeah, I'd like to learn more about that.
Sure.
What is that?
I'll
What
get
is
that for
she
you.
now certified to do versus what she wasn't certified to do before?
I'll get you the certification. Okay. Having said that, we have a motion. I think we got a second. You seconded, right?
Seconded.
Yeah. Discuss it. All those in favor, please vote for saying aye. Aye.
I'm a no just because of that.
Okay. That's fine. Moving
All
on to
right, number
general fund.
2 with the green highlights is the revenue. We're coming in good shape on revenues. The interest, again, that we had in our budget, that it would have been decreasing each quarter, and it never did increase until 2 weeks ago. So that is still coming in higher than expected. The last year we had a big addition of municipal revenue sharing that the CCM says don't put it in your budget. In August of last year, the state estimated they would give us $64,000, and it came in at $550,000 in October. This year, they didn't give us an estimate. State CCM still said, don't put it in your budget because it had never been funded before. State gave us no estimate, and we should find that out November 1st is what
Yeah.
they're saying.
I got a note from Martin Heft to the state today saying, ooh, we're gonna give it to you in November, but didn't say what it was.
No, no.
So-
And so that's, any questions on the revenue for this fiscal year?
Not for me.
Capital, and I don't know of any concerns on the revenue. The capital non-recurring fund, for cash capital, that we're looking for $774 more for the chipper, and for Ralph's department, and he can take it from the GPS tracking. So we're looking for that transfer.
Oh, where's the top?
That cost just came in higher than we had budgeted.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed transfers between projects in the capital non-recurring fund for year-end '25 as shown on the attached report and forward to the Board of Finance for their review and possible approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
The GPS tracking is still happening.
Yes, it was a 10,000 in total, and it came in under.
Yep, it came in a little less expensive than we thought. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, carries 3-0.
And then finally, you have in the blue highlight on top, the bonded capital for 2025, and there's no changes there.
Great, super. Okay, thank you very much, Marcia. Does anybody have any further questions for Marcia on finances? No?
Thank you, Marcia. You said it, biggest month of the year.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And they all made it through.
Okay.
Bless you.
Look at this. Middle of page here. Okay. New items. The State of Connecticut of Emergency Services and Public Protection, the Internet Crimes Against Children, is asking us to update the memo of understanding. Just so people are listening, Brookfield PD Police Department partners with the ICAC Task Force to deter, prevent, investigate, and prosecute predators who use computers, electronic media, and the internet to exploit minors in sexual activity. The ICAC is requiring an updated memo of understanding, which is attached. I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve and sign the updated memo of understanding. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second. Any discussion on that?
When was the last time we signed an MOU?
I don't know. It's
Have
been a
we
while.
ever?
I seem to remember 4 or 5 years ago there was one. Was there one while you were in office
No,
that you remember?
no.
Yeah. They do come back to us every once in a while.
So, does this apply to the schools as well?
The schools? No, this is with our police department.
So,
I would think they would involve the schools if the schools had.
If the schools had
So-
something that needed to be investigated, they would reach out to the police department, and that's what
Right.
would engage this.
Yep.
I'm just wondering why it is specific to computers, electronic media, and the internet when we clearly have books that are very explicit and sexual in nature in our schools. So, is this MOU gonna take a look at those books that are on the shelves of our schools?
I highly doubt that because it's
Because
up.
the book teaches the child how to go on Grindr and meet with an adult to have sexual encounter. So what is it that we're saying here? Are we signing this just to go through the process and, say we're really concerned with protecting children against these things while we have this filth in our schools?
I would say anything the town can do in conjunction with the state to protect children is a good thing, even if people don't believe it covers every single thing that should. You have your opinion on that?
Read the
Other people-
language in here, Steve.
Let me finish.
The
You
books
have your
in the
opinion.
schools tell the children how to go on a website, which is called Grindr, and it happened in Danbury a few months ago.
And you know what? They can do it with this in 3 seconds.
Okay.
So every
that's not
child
what
who
this
has
is
a
saying.
phone, we should take that
That's
away
not
from
what
them.
this is saying.
You know, you have your opinion on that. I
I
appreciate
do
you
have
have your
my
opinion.
opinion, as do many, many parents in this
Right.
town.
But
And Connecticut is
We're
the
di-
third, according to
just one
DCF,
we're
in child
discussing
predators.
this memo of understanding, which involves our police helping ICAC to prevent this. This is a no-brainer for me. The answer
You're
is yes.
talking out of both sides of your mouth.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
When your Board of Ed supports pornography in the schools, what is this saying?
That has nothing to do with this. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
Maybe you can comment on it, Bob, because it's against the law to provide sexual content to minor children.
So this memo of understanding is a different service. You wanna, no, seriously, if you wanna open this to be a discussion about books in the schools, I would suggest you go talk to the Board of Education, because that's their responsibility.
I want to
That's a fair
understand what it is we're signing, because it says right here,
Can,
prosecute predators who use computers, electronic media, and the internet.
the MOU is in front of you. You can vote no if you decide
So
to.
are we gonna be prosecuted because we allow the filth in the schools that is applicable under what's
I
in
think-
this, in these guidelines?
I think Bob's
I read
point was,
this.
I think Bob's point was very well taken, that if you have a concern about books in the schools, that should be brought up with the Board of Ed. The Board of Selectmen has no control whatsoever with what the schools do.
So if
We
we
do not
sign
control
this, that we're then allowing Chief Puglisi, who already signed it, to go investigate.
They, I would imagine they'll
are-
investigate
Mr. Beecher,
any.
are we gonna be held accountable?
I couldn't answer that question.
Right.
So, let's move forward. So, we have a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve and sign the updated memo of understanding. Did I get a second? I didn't yet, right?
No.
Bob?
I don't remember if I, did it? Tara seconded it.
Oh,
for
Tara
discussion,
seconded. Okay,
right.
for discussion. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining. I don't understand what it is we're doing here.
Okay.
It's not right.
By the way, does it cost the town anything to participate in this?
No, it does not. It's a more cooperative.
It's a cooperative
You know, like
agreement.
our fire departments work together. Erickson Farm, lease renewal agreement, the Giving Garden, 8 Nabby Road. We have the lease here. The recommended motion is the Board of Selectmen approve the lease renewal through October 31st, 2029. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I'd like to see the previous lease agreement. And again, why do we have a lease with them but not with the garden at Kursky?
So is your motion to table this? Are you making a motion
I'm
to table
asking
this?
questions for discussion. He seconded it for a
Well,
discussion.
you
right?
asked to see the previous lease. I don't have that with me. So are you making a
So,
motion to
so
table?
Steve, is
until
that
you
something
see-
you can provide?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
is this something we have to urgently approve?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to table this so that
I'll
we
second
can
that.
both see the,
Previous lease?
the previous lease.
Okay, I'll
And
second
answer
that.
the question why this was, this has a lease and the.
Yeah, I don't know what the
I
answer is.
suspect the nature of what's being done is
I
different.
think it's the entity. It's also a non-Brookfield entity and Alliance.
Well,
just
and
about-
they're operating it completely,
Yeah,
right?
completely.
All we've done,
Yeah.
then, so this,
We'll do a little more research on that on too.
so the
Okay.
motion on the table is to
I
table it.
seconded the motion to table pending receiving the previous lease and a little better understanding why we'll have one
It's a
lease
good
versus
question
the other.
Tara asks, so.
Yeah, good. So, we have motion, we have a second. All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
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 I'm sorry.
Aye.
Okay. Emergency contingency plan for electors. We just got this on Friday, so we've given this to everyone. The registrars have done yeoman's work on this, creating this document. We need to get it into the state. I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the emergency contingency plan for elections. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Just that, so, do we have a draft?
Here it is, right
Oh,
here.
okay. This wasn't in the packet?
It wa-
No, we just got that Friday.
Huh,
Yeah,
It was
no,
in the
no.
packet I got.
Oh, you got it in the paper?
It was- I
I think
just was flipping through it, and
Wait
it
a
Is
minute.
it in there?
was pages 79 through 240, 79 through about 90.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, so yeah.
So, what are we doing here? Your motion was to approve this plan?
Yeah. The state requires that the Board of Selectmen, the registrars write it, and we approve it.
So
Have the
I've spent some time looking at this, Tara.
Have the
They-
police
they-
looked at this?
Yeah, no, they're part of the task force who created
part
it.
of
In
it.
the first page, you see who was involved, the fire marshal and the police are in there and all of that. This is like the 5th iteration of it. They do this before every fall election. In fact, just getting everybody, they run this task force where they get together and say, what do we have to update?
Yeah, we actually had a room full of 20 people going over it.
Right, and this just included the most recent updates, which were pretty minor, to be frank.
Okay, we have a motion. I made a motion. Did you second, Bob?
Yes, I did.
Bob seconded. Any further discussion?
Oh, just out of curiosity, are we still using Saint Marguerite as a voting location, or will it be at the new school?
Right now, we're using St. Marguerite's. It's in here.
The
why?
registrars made the decision that just before a presidential, it would be the wrong time to change, make a
Move
significant
people around.
location change, because people
With the
will end up going
presidential.
to they'd end up going to the wrong place.
Yeah.
So they made the decision that they would stay at St. Marguerite's for the presidential and then move to the new school after.
Okay.
Any further questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. We have a request for a modification of an existing driveway easement at Happy Landings. Tom Beecher, town attorney, has worked with the homeowner and his lawyer. We sent it to the Conservation Committee and the Planning Commission, both who agreed that it is something that we should do to allow the homeowner to be able to get out onto the highway safely. I would make a motion that because it's a change in town property, we have to have a town meeting. I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen schedule a special town meeting for December 2nd, 2024 at 6:30 PM. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second?
That's just before our regular meeting, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Second, DOJ COPS grant. The town was awarded a grant of $963,000 for a town-wide radio system upgrade. This is in addition to what we had before. We were able to put together a number of requirements and apply for the grant. They did award it in 963, so we'll get backup equipment. We'll get it in cases. We're going to add stations to the police station, the fire station, and a mobile command station. We'll get 6 units in Pelican cases for backup in emergencies, and 6 units of communications equipment for guests, and a generator at the Railroad Tower, which goes to resiliency, and 11% in contingency due to supply chain issues and inflation. This is a good thing. This is a win for us and sets us forward. And also the warranties and warranty services are really expensive. So we're going to put those in there too for 25 and 26. And tower rent, they put 15,000 for the early months not covered in there. So the total adds up to the 963,000 in the grant. We do need a town meeting because this is an additional appropriation to the town. I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen schedule a special town meeting for December 2nd, 2024 at 6:30 PM to accept the comment and discuss the grant and accept it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Tara seconds. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I got 2 questions.
Yeah.
First, are we doing both town meetings at 6:30 PM?
Yeah. we do-
Don't you have to have one at 6:30 and like one at 6:45?
No, we can do a combined agenda.
We can do
It can
we'll
be a
do
combined agenda? Okay, I
Right.
gotcha.
Yeah, I
And
talked
then
to
the
Tom
second
about
question is, what's the status on getting the communication system up and running?
So they are ready and they are already starting on Vale Road. That is the last big hurdle. They have most of the equipment installed, up and running. They redid the entire communication center and they did the backup in the sergeant's office. They're doing the same thing at the high school. So from what Pete Franks told me, he's our major in the police department. I think they'll be up and running by around the first of the year, but it depends on how quickly they can get it up on Vale Road.
It's up on Vale Road
Yeah.
is the issue. Okay.
But the agreement for Vale Road has been signed 2 weeks ago, so they're ready to go as soon as they can get that
That's
up.
one we talked about a meeting or two ago where we asked them, what help do you need from us?
Right.
Do they need any help from us as a board?
No, not right now. They're doing well. They're doing well.
Who signed the agreement?
I did.
So do we get to see that? Where is it?
I'm sorry.
Where is the agreement?
I'm sorry, on the 963,000?
No.
On the Bell Road Tower.
Vale Road agreement, it's the same agreement they've had before us for 2 years. I signed it. If you want a copy of it, I can get you a copy of it.
Well, isn't it supposed to come before the board?
No, because we already approved putting the tower equipment on the board, on the tower, right?
What is it exactly? Is it contract?
It's a contract to put our equipment on the thing, and they charge us $3,000 a month for it.
So, that type of contract is supposed to come before the board for a vote on signature, isn't that correct, Tom?
I thought it had.
Yeah, I think it had too. Because we agreed to put our equipment on that tower. And I just signed the agreement. The board agreed to do that and spend the
I
money.
don't remember.
Okay,
And
so
also, what was this is good news on the 963, but what was the holdup?
what do you mean, what, this is a new grant we applied for this year. There's no
This is the
hold.
one that came through,
So in March of 2023, we applied for the 963, but we didn't qualify. That it was already bonded, which was against the rules. We didn't go out to bid, which was against the rules for a federal grant. And the timing of the purchases, we couldn't start until we got this grant. So all the purchases were done in advance. So we met in May and June of this year to try and pivot, and we wrote a new application of what could we use that we didn't already have. So we couldn't save any money on the 6 million that we had before, but what is it that we could add to our system? And that's where we have control, what do we call it, dispatch consoles at the police station for a backup, at the fire station, in the in-mobile command vehicle. We've got extra subscriber units in Pelican cases, the generator that Steve talked about, the post-warranty services, those are 367,000, so that won't have to be in our budget. And then the first 5 months of the tower rent, that's how we got to the 963.
So it just happens to be the same number?
No, that we could use that. That was our introduction, the March. But there are rules to federal grants, and when it asked on our original application, you know, how are we going to follow the uniform grant guidance, we left it blank, and we couldn't follow the uniform grant guidance. There's a whole series of rules, and I think that we ended up with like 17,000 that was paid after the dates that was, but even that, it was bonded. So all of the whole thing we could not use for that, and that's why we had to pivot and say what could
we
we
were
get
trying
some
to fit
money.
into a $963,000
Correct.
number.
correct.
Why did was there a reason we had to hold it at the same number?
Because that's what we had said in the original one. It's a two-step process. So the first step was March of 2023.
That's where we got the total amount, and then
Correct.
we had to go show that we would meet the requirements.
Correct.
I got it. And so now this is meeting the requirements
Mhm.
in a
Yes.
different way.
Because it's new.
So the grant was already pre-approved at that amount.
It was, no, it was, we were invited to apply at 963. So
Got it.
it was very confusing. So the March of 2023 got us the invitation to apply in March, or in May and June of 2024. And so then we had to find what could we apply for.
The original request was for, I believe, $2 or $3 million, and then then it was reduced through legislation to 963, and Ms. Hayes was here. I think you had a photograph with her, like, her congratulating us on the grant approval.
With-
And all of a sudden it died on the vine,
So that was the confusing part, and so then when we got into it, we had to go into the state and federal, that's when we learned that it was just an invitation to apply is what we had when she was here.
So since, when did you apply
So
for this?
when we originally
grant?
applied in 2023, we weren't eligible to apply, but we did anyway. We had already funded it, we had already started spending money, we had already issued purchase orders, we did not go out to bid. So we would not qualify. So what we did was
That's the die on
pivot.
the vine.
That's
That's
the
the
die on the vine, because they would say, you don't qualify. We applied, but you
Then
don't
why did
qualify.
they, kind of mentor us along in the grant application process and then say, oh, congratulations, Brookfield, you were given this grant, and then renege on that? And now all of a sudden, you were able to, in a short amount of time, apply to this.
So they didn't renege on it, that we just never looked, so in the application that we had from March of 2023, the question of how are you going to apply, to comply with the uniform grant guidance was left blank. And so had we filled that out then, we would have said, oh my goodness. And I think you had a conversation on the phone, there was some discussion that we had already bonded for this, and nobody else was on that call. And so we tried to say, okay, did they say on that call that we could waive that or something? And we went backwards through who it was that you spoke with, and they said, oh no, their guidance would just be helpful and not authoritative. It would just be anecdotal. And
How
so.
did it get to the point where Ms. Hayes was here in this room, I think
So
standing
she-
over there, with our police and firemen?
I can't
say-
explain why this
She
is
was-
one.
Congratulations, you got, okay.
We were authorized
This
to
is all
apply,
just
and possibly
bonkers.
that 100% get the grants once they're authorized to apply. I don't know the rules on that.
So the good thing is, we were able to pivot, switch, and get the money, right? And so, we need to have that town meeting. I think we've had a motion, we had a second from Bob. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye,
For the meeting only, aye.
Yeah, just for scheduling the meeting.
just schedule a meeting. Okay, Homeland Towers, as we discussed earlier, there is a public hearing scheduled for this Thursday, October 10th at 7 at Brookfield High School. We recommend all residents come and see that. Iroquois Pipeline, I know.
Actually, if I may, on that,
Sure.
that's gonna be very difficult for all residents to come, especially parents whose children attend that high school. It's a very busy, sports season. Parents have other commitments, like, I don't think we're gonna get a good turnout because there's conflicts. So,
When would, well, we can't change it now, but when would you suggest we have it? Saturdays, when their kids are playing sports? I don't understand. We always hold our town meetings during the week, not on Mondays, not on Fridays, for exactly that reason. We usually have them at the high school, because there's gonna be a lot of people at this event, I think. I'm not sure.
May or may not.
May or may not. And this is what the town has always done, is hold, we have to have a town meeting, we have to move forward on this.
Well, we have to have a public hearing and then a town
Yeah,
meeting.
well, I'm sorry, we have to have a public hearing and then a vote on it. Right.
so there will be a vote, that's
Yeah,
important.
there has to be a
to
vote.
have here
There
on
won't
the
be.
agenda.
Not at this meeting.
Not at
Be a
this
vote
meeting.
on the 10th. no.
Yeah, just the public
So
hearing.
we would have to, after the public hearing, we'll have to schedule a town meeting?
Correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah. Because we want to hear what the public has to say first.
The 10th is a public hearing required by general statutes for transactions with municipal property. But it's not the town meeting date. That would be, the Board of Selectmen would decide on when a town meeting date should be to approve that.
So we would have a special Board of Selectmen meeting to set that meeting, all the requirements for reporting, newspaper notification and everything. And I think we should do that as soon as possible, sometime in November. We'll pick a couple dates and then the Board of Selectmen.
How far after the public hearing do you have to have
It's
the town
14
meeting?
days?
Is there a minimum?
No.
No, okay.
No, okay.
So what will happen at the town meeting? Who's presenting? Is this the read-ahead material for it, or, like, what can the public expect to?
Yeah, the public hearing, the
See.
Homeland Tower will make a presentation, and then we will open the floor up for comments and questions from the public, and we will all answer them. Okay. Iroquois Pipeline, Dan spoke a little bit earlier. I will take his suggestions, Kerry's suggestions, and follow up on them. For consent agenda,
I'm sorry, on the Iroquois pipeline, Carrie said that we have some names of attorneys. Is this, how much money is in the budget for that?
There's $0 in the budget for that. Tom had advised us if we wanted to take a case before, it would be federal court, is that correct, Tom, right?
No, we're talking about doing an intervenor status.
Oh, to file for intervenor
So
status.
that would, we would have to, if we don't have the list of specialist attorneys, let's get it
Yeah.
and go enter into that discussion.
And that's what I just said.
There is no budget for it, though.
Right, there's no budget for
So,
that.
for this intervenor status, I know Carrie or Dan said that they've been intervenors here in Brookfield before, and Cromwell had intervenors, is that right?
I think that's what they said, yes.
So are there other examples of towns that have used these intervenors where they've been successful in halting the permitting process, or in Connecticut?
I don't know,
We don't know.
no. But we'll, as I said just a minute ago, we'll review the information Dan and Kerry gave us and move forward and come back to the board and tell you what we find.
I think it's a great idea, by the way.
Yeah, I think so too.
And
Yeah.
she also, there was also mention of the meeting with the governor. Is that something that's on
The
the
governor
books?
has never not responded despite numerous requests. We have not gotten anything back from the governor, nothing.
Numerous requests by way of email, or?
Email, calls to his office, follow-ups with his staff. We just haven't gotten a response. And I think the reason is DEP is in the middle of this. They're about to have a public hearing on it. He doesn't want to intervene. That's my guess. I can't force the man to answer my phone call. I wish I could. I did get Susan Beisowitz to get us an appointment with the department, and that was a plus, and that was an uphill battle. So I don't have a relationship with the governor that I do have with Susan. So that was.
Yeah, so I'm thinking the intervenor status gets you some leverage.
A little
And
bit, yeah, I think so.
So, and I like the thought that it would give us more than the 3 minutes
Yeah.
of public speaking. So I think that knowing it's imminent, the faster we jump on it, the
Yeah,
better.
I agree. I agree. I think it's a great
The
idea.
governor popped into Brookfield not too long ago when he heard about the sewering of the shores, so
He
what's
did.
to say that he wouldn't come back for this? I
He
mean,
came and spent an hour and some odd minutes with me, and we had a one-to-one conversation, and he said to me, whenever you need help, give me a call. I did. He didn't. Okay, let's move on. On the consent agenda, I make a recommendation that the selectmen approve items A through E on the consent agenda. Do I have a second to discuss that?
Second.
Second, okay. That would include selectmen approval for routine matters, Board of Selectmen meeting minutes for the 9/2/24 and 9/28/24 special meeting with the coffee with the community. Driveway bond releases at 20 Knowlcrest Drive, 5 Foxtail, 14 Torrey Lane, 46 Green Ridge. Excavation bond release at 30 Hidden Brook Drive. And employee changes, Christopher Monchal, Parks and Rec grounds maintainer, resigned, and we hired Justin Lyons, police officer, who was sworn in today. Okay, I have a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. 3-0, okay. Appointments. I would make, for the ad hoc police building committee, we're still waiting, I make a motion that we table that until next month while additional members are solicited. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
So, how many do we have?
I
from
believe
2
we
meetings
got
ago?
4 Republicans, right? I don't think we got anybody else yet officially reply. I have a couple people that I may have interested but we don't have enough to form the entire committee yet.
So why don't we just go ahead and get this thing established with who we have, and then we can add members
Because you
later?
got a
You can't-
minority representation issue.
Yeah, you can't
They're,
just
they're
put
all
four
from one
Republicans.
party, they're all from one party so
Recommendations.
far.
Yeah.
He just said he had other recommendations.
As soon as we
No,
get
no,
them
no.
in.
I said we have 4 Republicans, and I have a couple people who might be interested but not have formally replied. We only have 4 Republicans right now. We can't form a committee with 4 Republicans. Just can't do it. Okay. On Youth Commission, I recommend
No, we
that.
gotta vote on this
Oh,
table.
I'm sorry. All those in favor of tabling? Aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
I would
carried.
just, if we do get someone in, Steve, from either unaffiliated or the Democratic Party, if we have to have a special meeting to set, for example.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it.
a town meeting, let's add that to the agenda and get
Yeah.
it set up, because
Yeah.
I think we gotta get this going.
Yeah, I'd love to get it done. Okay, for the Youth Commission, I make a motion that the Board of Selectmen appoint Samath Shirsat and Julie Magner as non-voting student members of the Youth Commission as recommended by the Youth Commission Board with a term of 10/7/24 to 8/31/26. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries 3-0. I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen appoint Ben Bogus, I hope I
Bogues,
pron-
Bogues.
Bogues?
Yep.
I knew I was gonna get that wrong. Democrat from alternate member to regular member with a term of 10/7/24 to 2/7/28. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0, okay. For the WPCA, I make a motion that the Board of Selectmen appoint Matt Wolk, who's unaffiliated, from alternate member to regular member as recommended by the WPCA with a term of 10/7/24 to 2/2/26. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, carries 3-0. And then we simply have correspondence, which is a lot of, and that should be it. I would make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.